Here we are, you guys. Oh my goodness. Here we are. So, I'm Courtney. I'm going to be your host of the podcast over here. But first, on this very official first episode, I want to introduce myself and share a little bit about my story that I'm sure you can resonate with and how this came to be, how Money Mindset for Her came to be, and how I got inspired to not only share my story and help other women rewrite their money story, but empower people to have a different view when it comes to money itself. Money, it's a tricky topic. Not a lot of people like to talk about it. Some people feel uncomfortable talking about it. And if that's you, I'm so happy you're here because we need to change that. Money is neither good or bad. And we're going to dive into that. Money is a necessity, right? You can't feed your kids, put a roof over your head, pay your bills without money. It is just the way of life these days. Okay, so I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to share my story and I'm going to get really real and vulnerable and I'm going to be really open with you. Okay, so a good majority of you, I'm betting to say almost all of you, suffer with some form of a limiting belief or money block around money. It's almost human nature. With, depending what we viewed as children with our parents, if we watched them fighting over money or hoarding money or all the things with money, that helped shape a bit about our current money reality. But so did other conditioning like peers or mentors or teachers, how we've seen things on media, the news. All these little pieces, these little puzzle pieces come together and they shape our current reality of money. I also want to throw in that the foundation of it all will be how you view yourself and your self-esteem. Self-esteem and how you think, deal, and handle money go hand in hand. They go hand in hand with each other. And I personally believe that if you can, I'm not going to use the word fixed, if you can enhance and rewire any limiting beliefs and self-esteem issues that you have of yourself and rewrite them and reprogram your mind to a more confident you, I believe that money will follow that. Okay, so I'm going to take you back and I'm going to share my entire journey on how I got to where I am today. And I'm speaking to those of you who grew up in environments where money was good, like myself. I grew up in an environment that had money. So you can still have money blocks, even growing up in an environment coming from money. Okay, so back when I was a little girl, I grew up super shy, so shy. Many of you who have been following me for a while, you know this story, but keep listening. I was very, very, very shy. I actually didn't go to junior kindergarten. I went about one day, and then I peed my pants because I was that shy to ask to go to the washroom. So I went home, and I didn't return until senior kindergarten. Anyways, once I got into the school system, it was very hard for me to make friends. People would often ask me, can you even speak? Do you know how to talk? And I wouldn't even respond. I would just simply nod my head. So I spent a majority of my days standing. I can still see the brick wall. During recess, while all the kids ran and played, I stood against the brick wall all by myself for a good amount of my early elementary school days. I was just too shy to make friends, too shy to interact or play with people. Time would go on, and around grade 3, I got diagnosed with a learning disability, which ended up being the greatest blessing of my life. But back then, I didn't really know any different. I would be pulled from the class and taken down to the end of the school, which what we called the special ed room. And it would be me and Miss Armstrong. God bless Miss Armstrong. I am so grateful for her now. But in grade 3, I was operating about a grade 1 level. I just wasn't grasping things. I just wasn't getting it. So I went through school, both elementary school and high school, with a learning disability, and had, special privileges to writing exams and all that kind of stuff. Fast forward, I ended up graduating and getting accepted into a very competitive industry. So I wanted to be a dental hygienist, and with persistence, I ended up getting into this very competitive program. And what I've come to learn as an adult is I maybe I had a learning disability. I just think I was slower, because right now I love to learn. I can tell you that I probably didn't finish a single book between elementary school and high school. Even in high school, when you had to do those book reports, I somehow finished the book report without even reading the book. And now I've read dozens of books. I read every night with my tea. I think I was just a late bloomer, but everything has its purpose, and I'm so grateful for those struggles before they made me who I am now. So I ended up getting into a really competitive program of dental hygiene, and I excelled. I did really well. I ended up finishing on the honor roll, and I had a really successful career. After graduation, I ventured into my 20s, and I got hit really hard for an entire decade with anxiety and depression. Feelings of, low self-worth. I was suicidal. I thought the world would be better off without me. I would question why I always felt this way, and I would seek help. I would go to counselors. I would go to therapists. I was on medication, and the weekend would roll around, and I would say, this is going to be different. This week is going to be different. I am not living like this anymore. And come Monday, nothing would change. It reminded me of, a diet cycle where you say, I'll try again Monday. I'll try again Monday, except for it was a mental struggle. And no matter what, I could not snap out of it. And so I struggled for an entire decade. And in that time frame, I accumulated a ton of debt. Like I said, I came from a family that had money. I started life really fortunate. I didn't have any school debt. My schooling was paid for. I clean slate right into the work world. And I kind of messed that up. And I'm going to tell you, I don't use that terminology anymore. We will get into that. But during my 20s, when I was struggling, I had very poor self-esteem, which translated into poor money mindset, and I would mindlessly spend. And what I teach in the academy is the relation, at least in my personal circumstance, the relationship between my self-esteem and my spending habits. I would, put everything on a credit card. I was still getting my career up and going. Plus mat leave with 2 kids, it all compounds. And I would spend money that I guess I didn't have. And it was to fill a void. Okay. So my foundation wasn't sound. My self-esteem wasn't sound. My confidence wasn't sound. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't feel worthy. It wasn't sound. Okay. So my spending was filling a void for something that I didn't feel. And I accumulated $60,000 worth of debt on a credit card that had 25.99% interest rate. And if you can think of that, how do you ever dig out from that? How? I would put every last little penny onto it to pay it off, because it was my biggest goal in life to pay that off. And, it would go down, but then the next month when, the interest comes out and it's just piled right back on. It was a constant hamster wheel. So I decided that things, needed to change between my poor mindset and obviously my money mindset as well. And so I started diving into, the power of the mind, mindset, money mindset, why people spend, why I was doing this. I'm a really why person. I've always been like that, where I have to know the why to it. So I dove in and started learning about money blocks, limiting beliefs, the power of your mind, law of attraction, the laws of the universe. I dove in and I started learning about all of those, and I started practicing them. So I started applying them physically in my life, and it was about I was just entering into my 30s, and I consistently showed up and started practicing these. And there was one book that I can share with you that was the catalyst of it all. And it was CBT for Dummies. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy was my intro to this. And, like, we got to a point in my relationship where my mental health was so poor that my husband could not take it anymore. And our daughter was 6 months at the time. I mean, he put up with me for a long time. And I like I said, I couldn't shake it, right? So we ended up splitting for a while, and I was a single mom. And that was my turning point when I said, I laid Brooke down on the bed beside me, and I said, I've got to do something for this little girl. I've got to change myself. For this girl deserves so much more. And a couple of my therapists had been talking about CBT, and I got the book and I read a chapter every single night. I put her to bed beside me on my bed, and I crawled into bed and I read a chapter every single night and did the exercises. And it was amazing. I slowly started to feel better. And my husband, over time would see the shifts, and we decided to rekindle. And, Brooke's 10 now. We're together. Everything's good. But it just really lit something inside me of the power of the mind. And from that point, things got better and better and better. And I'm happy to say that I've been completely anxiety and depression free for the past 5 years now, due to applying this work. And what I've come to learn after 10 years of struggling with anxiety and depression is the culprit was self-esteem. I truly believe that if anybody's struggling with anxiety and depression, if they can work on their self-esteem and their confidence and their self-image, which I talk about self-image in the academy as well, I believe they can turn it all around, because that's exactly what I did. I went from a maximum dose of anxiety medication to the lowest dose possible. I worked with many therapists, counselors, and I simply just grew belief and confidence in myself, and I was able to turn things around. So I believe personally that, confidence, self-image, self-esteem is the foundation to everything. So as I continue to work with money mindset and work on these principles, I uncovered a whole bunch of blocks that I didn't even know I had. And that's why I wasn't accumulating more money in my life. Instead, it was quite the opposite. I was accumulating more debt. So I focused a lot on emotions of shame, guilt, and embarrassment around money. And those were my dominant feelings. And I teach you in the Money Mindset Academy for Her about the vibrations of each emotion and how money doesn't have its own frequency, but the feeling that you apply to money is what dictates and gives money a frequency in your own life. And so I spent many years feeling shame, resentment, and guilt around that money that I had accumulated in my depressive years, because I had nothing to show for it. I had a big, hefty credit card bill with nothing to show for it. It was mindless spending to fill a void. So I carried a ton of shame and guilt. I came out of school with no debt, and here I am with this debt. I've got nothing to show for it. We have this family and we want to do things and go places, but I have this debt. And I felt like it was just looming over my head, holding me back. And that's all I felt day to day that's all I thought about, first of all, day to day, was debt and how to get it paid, and shame, guilt, resentment, and anger around it. And those are the lowest of the lowest vibration emotions, right? I also want to mention that what you focus on expands. So these were all little pieces of the puzzle that subconsciously was going on in my world that I didn't know was affecting my outer world until I dove into money mindset. So I dove in and I started changing my vocabulary completely around money, completely. If anyone asked, can you come here? Can you do that? Or can we get this? Sometimes I would say, oh, I can't afford it, or I don't have the money. I completely stopped using that terminology. Okay. Instead, I would just say, oh, not right now. Because what I teach is our words create thoughts, and our thoughts create feelings, and those feelings create a vibration, and that vibration is on a frequency. This may be over your head right now, but I teach it in depth in the academy. So when you're constantly resonating on that lower frequency, you're going to get what you put out, you're going to get more of. And I always wondered, why can I not get this debt paid? Like, I'm working max hours, I can't do it, like this, that. I contemplated filing for bankruptcy. Like, my debt was so bad that the banks wouldn't even consolidate for me because my debt to asset ratio was just, my debt was too high. There was no coming back. So I started, playing with the law of attraction and manifesting and the law of vibration. And I started to really understand these natural laws that are available to all of us here on this planet. And I started playing with them, and things started to change. Things started to change really drastically. And I'm not going to say they changed overnight. They took time. I'm a huge believer that everything happens for a reason, and we need to learn certain lessons in our life before we're ready for the next. For example, so I started diving into affirmations to reprogram my mind, to reprogram my paradigm around money and earning. And an affirmation that I wrote in 2016 over and over again was, I'm so happy and grateful for my 6-figure online business that I've generated, and I'm so grateful for the team I have around me. Now, keep in mind, at this time in 2016, I had just left my job in the city, so I did not have a permanent job. There was no jobs local to me. I was temping at local offices, so I would maybe work one day a week. Some weeks would go, I would work none. I didn't have an online business at the time, let alone a team, but I knew what I wanted, and I knew what I wanted to do. So I got laser focused and super clear. And that's what you need to do when you're trying to dig out and reprogram your money mindset or dig out from debt. You need to get laser focused, super clear. And that's what I did. I'm going to tell you that, yes, I have a multiple 6-figure business now. And yes, I have an amazing team. That came 4 years after writing that. So you keep in mind that you have to stay persistent. It took 4 years for that to manifest. And now looking back, I know exactly why. I wasn't done working on myself. I had lessons that I needed to learn and dots that I needed to connect in order for me to manifest that money. If I had have been given that circumstance and that income in 2016, I would have blown it all because I wasn't fully done accepting myself and working on my self-esteem. I would have blown it all, filling the voids. And now that I've worked on my money mindset and I've connected the dots that's why I spent, there wouldn't have been none left. And I know exactly why it happened this time frame. Everything happens in divine timing. So do not try to rush things. It's so important. So that is my story. And there's other blocks that we go in and we work on, like receiving. If you're not open to receiving, which was a huge block of mine, even though I came from money, I didn't have any limiting beliefs around like money's evil or anything like that. I've always, had a good relationship with money in that sense, but it all came from my self-worth. It was all self-esteem related. And I had to really dive in and look at the emotions that I was using around money. So forgiveness is huge. Forgiving yourself for past, spending habits or past debt that you've accumulated, and receiving. I'm a person that was not open to receiving. I'm the nice girl. So if anybody was to take me out for coffee, I'm the girl that would say, oh, no, I'll pay. And then I would also be the one that was pushing cash over the table to whoever I was out for coffee with. And if they didn't take it, I would be the one sneaking it into their purse, being like, take it, take it, take it. I was not open to receiving. And that is a money block right there. So now I've been able to switch all that. And when someone wants to take me out or we go out and a friend wants to pay, I simply just say, thank you, I'll catch next time. Okay. These are all tiny little details that make a huge impact. We talk in the academy about your language around money. We talk about the money blocks. We talk about receiving. We talk about forgiving. We talk about troubleshooting. We talk about self-image. These are all things that I have accumulated over the past, I would say, definitely in the past 6 years, but it goes deeper than that. Probably I'm going to say about the past decade that I've pieced together in my own personal life and been able to transform my entire story. I went from earning $50K a month, or sorry, $50K a year to $300K a year. Debt, $60K of credit card debt that was like not going to get paid off. Like I'm telling you, the interest on that was crazy, to being debt free. So this stuff is really powerful. And when you tune in each week, I'm going to have a different topic when it comes to money mindset. I also have a private Facebook group that you're more than welcome to join, where I like to share my tips and tricks as well. And I'll put that link in the show notes below. But that's my story. And I'm Courtney, and I'm going to be your host for the next forever. And I can't wait to start watching and witnessing you guys transform and change your money mindset, because it's the best thing I've ever done, is invest in myself, to take time to do this and stop sabotaging myself. So I appreciate you guys for being here, and I can't wait to bring you more value-packed content, and I can't wait to share this incredible knowledge with you guys. So thanks for listening.